In the bustling daylight, within a towering skyscraper, a weary man ascended the stairs, each step echoing his exhaustion. As he climbed higher, fatigue weighed heavily upon him, and he pondered his impending demise, lamenting the absence of a warning about the malfunctioning elevator. Reaching the 28th floor, he grimly mused that had he been forewarned, he would have declined the delivery order altogether. At that juncture, he activated the intercom, announcing his presence. A young woman eventually responded, inquiring with an air of impatience about the duration of her wait. Staring at her in disbelief, drenched in perspiration, he stammered an explanation, only to have her snatch the package from his grasp with a huff. She dismissed him curtly, insisting that the restaurant was merely across the street and refusing to compensate for a delivery when it took him so long. That attempting to clarify the elevator's predicament, he was met with her ire. "Are you joking?" she retorted, asserting that the food had grown cold and that the delivery service had been consistently lackluster. Frustration boiling within him, he shouted back, suggesting she should rise from her sofa and fetch her own meal. Yet, in a moment of clarity, he quickly reined in his temper and offered a sheepish apology. Deep breaths were necessary. After all, a complaint could jeopardize his ability to accept future orders. He chastised himself for his dire financial situation, recognizing it was his own fault for being impoverished. Sat on his scooter, lost in contemplation. Something caught his eye. Turning his head, he was astounded to see a massive, mysterious blue portal looming before him. A few years prior, such gates had emerged worldwide, leading to dungeons teeming with monsters and insurmountable threat to humanity. In response, deities, often referred to as mythical, selected a handful of mortals, bestowing upon them extraordinary powers. These champions, known as hunters, took on the solemn duty of combating the monstrous hordes. The man, feeling disheartened, lamented that traversing this new obstacle would consume an eternity for an ordinary individual like himself. Suddenly, his phone rang, and upon answering, he was greeted with a furious voice. It was Ha Jun, who demanded to know what he had said to the customer. The man explained that the restaurant had rescinded their order in favor of a competitor, all because of a prior altercation. He felt the weight of his problems intensifying, and as Ha Jun shared that he had been banned from accepting orders for an entire week, dread surged through him. "But boss," he protested, only to be met with silence as the call ended abruptly. Moments later, he received a text detailing the client's grievances, accompanied by a shocking photograph of food discarded in a toilet. The message recounted how the customer lived just across the street, complaining that the delivery had taken over 30 minutes, resulting in cold, soggy offerings. Enraged, the man resolved to confront his superior, but then panic set in. Rent was due the following week, and he would be forced to seek alternative employment as a mover. In that moment, he envied the hunters, wishing fervently that he could have been chosen by the deities and granted their gifts. If he were a hunter, he mused, his life would be one of luxury and comfort. As he contemplated his dismal fate, a melodious sound captured his attention, a heart's gentle notes wafting through the air. His phone chimed once more with a new delivery order. Curiosity piqued, he gazed at the unfamiliar app, perplexed by its peculiar notification. The message indicated a new delivery request, and before he could process it, a radiant pink glow emanated from the device, enveloping him entirely. In an instant, he found himself transported to an otherworldly realm adorned with pink clouds and a magnificent castle, where unicorns frolicked. Still seated on his scooter, he marveled at the surreal scenery, questioning whether he was caught in a dream or had indeed been selected by divine beings. Hope flickered within him. Perhaps he could escape his squalid existence as a courier. As he absorbed the enchanting surroundings, another delivery notification pinged through his phone. Upon inspection, he discovered that a bottle of nectar was requested, along with a designated route. What kind of nectar was this? Unsure of what awaited him, he decided to accept the order, driven by curiosity and a glimmer of hope. A colossal pink gate swung open, and he cautiously rode his scooter through, arriving at the opulent castle. This, he realized, was the fabled abode of the gods. With excitement coursing through him, he approached the grand entrance, knocking on the towering doors, his thoughts racing. If he encountered one of the mythic beings, perhaps he could seize the chance to become a hunter. To his astonishment, the door swung open to reveal a stunning woman with flowing blonde hair and a flowing gown. He attempted to explain his presence, but she gasped, incredulously questioning what a mere mortal was doing in Olympus. Urging him to clarify his intentions, he displayed the delivery application, expressing his confusion over how he had arrived there. Her eyes widened at the mention of the delivery app. "That fool Hermes," she exclaimed, instructing him to wait. Cautioning him about the dangers of meddling with such things, she handed him a flask containing a flickering flame, imploring him to ensure it reached her brother without delay. "Don't even think about tasting it," she warned. He nodded, bewildered, as she gestured for him to leave, slamming the door behind her. Stunned and perplexed, he pondered the bizarre turn of events. Even divine beings treated him with suspicion, warning him not to touch their precious nectar. Inspecting the flask, he mused that it resembled apple juice. Could he simply discard it? But the thought of delivering it to her brother, a god, ignited a spark of ambition within him. Just perhaps, he could win favor and ascend to a higher existence. Clad in determination, he donned his helmet, vowing that this would be his final delivery. Navigating a treacherous path marred by fissures spewing molten lava, he followed the app's directions, realizing he was nearing his destination. As he approached a sprawling house situated perilously close to the lava, he called out to announce his arrival. Reflecting on the numerous flights he had conquered that day, upon entering, he was immediately enveloped by searing heat. Confounded by the source of the warmth, he soon spotted a burly figure hammering away at a massive forge. The stout man turned, brandishing a colossal sword, causing the delivery man to recoil in fear. "I'm not a thief," he stammered, explaining the purpose of his visit. The robust figure's demeanor shifted, a gleam of recognition in his eyes. "Ah, my sister sent this," he exclaimed, his demeanor brightening. The man's surprise deepened. The siblings appeared utterly dissimilar. As the god examined the flask, he eagerly questioned whether the delivery had been completed without a sip taken. With a chuckle, the man dismissed the notion that he would pilfer a divine order. Yet, as he watched the god consume the nectar in one swift gulp, a mixture of astonishment and envy coursed through him. The man reveled in the taste, exclaiming that he hadn't savored such fresh nectar in ages. In a whirlwind of laughter and camaraderie, he introduced himself as Hephaestus, while the delivery man, still in disbelief, introduced himself in turn. Mispronouncing his name, the god remarked on its uniqueness, thanking him for his service. The moment had arrived for industrious pursuits. Wishing Hajun a safe voyage, he gently placed his hand upon the man's shoulder, uttering a simple command to wait. The man, taken aback, turned to face Hajun, who chuckled, revealing that he had yet to receive payment. Determined not to depart empty-handed, Hajun inquired, bewildered, whether the man meant to say that payment for his delivery was still outstanding. Heista responded with laughter, insisting that Joe should have already procured the compensation. This baffled Hajun, who pondered the implications of this assertion. In that instant, a memory flickered to life, the application on his device, radiant with luminescence. He shut his eyes, and a window materialized before him, displaying a staggering total of 1,000 points. Reclining on the sofa, he regarded the screen, convinced that this was no mere figment of his imagination. Once again, he was enveloped by that blinding radiance, only to find himself back on Earth. Initially, he believed this to be a dream, yet the notification remained persistent. Hajun scrutinized the screen, contemplating the conundrum of how to utilize these points. Was it truly impossible to exchange them for cash? A wave of frustration washed over him. He was so tantalizingly close to divine favor, yet this was all he had obtained. He questioned whether he was asking too much. Was it too great a request to transform him into the strongest hunter in existence? Suddenly, his gaze fell upon the screen, and in astonishment, he exclaimed, "Huh?" A notification indicated that points could be traded for items in a store. In disbelief, Hajun entered the store, scanning the peculiar inventory. Among the bizarre offerings, a golden apple, a gleaming axe, lead and golden arrows, and a moped, he mused on the absurdity of it all. He had no need for such items. The moped, the priciest of the lot, left him utterly perplexed. There was no hunter's gear to be found, and even if there were, he wouldn't survive a mere minute within the treacherous dungeon. Despondent, he deemed the venture futile, resigning himself to the notion that he would never become a hunter. Just then, an extraordinary sight caught his attention, prompting him to shout in surprise. The realization struck him like lightning. Points could indeed be converted to currency, with each coin valued at 10,000 in local currency. Overwhelmed with excitement, he pressed the screen with fervor, and a 10,000 bill materialized before him. Dumbfounded, Hajun watched as his points dwindled. Could this be real? He pressed the button repeatedly, watching as his apartment filled with cash. Clutching the bills tightly, he exclaimed in a frenzy, "This is the reward, I understand." Unsure whether he was dreaming, he sat at the table, relishing the moment. The conversion to tangible currency had indeed worked. He even verified one of the bills at an ATM, confirming its authenticity. With 800 points remaining, he contemplated the staggering sum of 10 million he had amassed from a single delivery. Meanwhile, an employee approached him to inquire if everything was satisfactory with his meal. With mouthfuls of food, Ha-jun exuberantly affirmed that it was nothing short of divine. Suddenly, laughter bubbled forth, and the worker hurried away, leaving Ha-jun to ponder how best to utilize his newfound wealth. At that moment, he noticed an announcement from the nation's premier hunters guild, Youngwon, proclaiming the signing of a contract with Heian Sunlin. Ha-jun gazed at the notice in disbelief, absorbing the fact that the guild was preparing for an imminent raid into Tartarus, one of the most formidable and perilous dungeons known. The heavenly patron of H1 Sunlin was rumored to be none other than an Olympian deity. Surprised, Ha-jun mused, "Ah, is he my patron?" A smile crept upon his face as he dismissed the thought. For him, Hephaestus was the pinnacle of clientele. He vacated the establishment, proclaiming how utterly satiated he felt. Just then, his phone chimed, and he presumed it was a new order. With a sense of anticipation, he hopped onto the moped, only to be greeted by a notification indicating another delivery request. As the light from the phone began to dim, Ha-jun shut his eyes, and upon reopening them, he found himself in a resplendent garden, adorned with rainbows and fluttering butterflies. "Is this some kind of paradise?" he exclaimed in wonder. Curiosity piqued, he sought to discover the specifics of his next delivery when a voice startled him from behind. "Are you Ha-jun?" a woman in a flowing white dress inquired, her demeanor serene. She introduced herself as Demar, expressing her pleasure in meeting him. Ha-jun returned her greeting, and Demar explained that her nephew had informed her of his profession as a delivery man. Intrigued, Ha-jun asked for her nephew's name, to which she responded, House. His mind raced, connecting the familial dots. What an interesting family dynamic, he thought, pondering the nature of their relationships. Demar, noting Ha-jun's swiftness in delivering nectar, expressed her trust in him and requested that he undertake another delivery on her behalf. Eager to oblige, Ha-jun assured her that he would fulfill her request without fail, convinced that this task would yield yet another windfall. Demar smiled, instructing him to wait as she began to weave a spell. Green rays erupted from her hands, and in a flash, a white box adorned with a crimson bow materialized. Ha-jun regarded it with astonishment as Demar asked him to deliver it to her daughter. She expressed her regrets for being unable to do so herself, citing the necessity for gods to remain within their realms unless compelled by grave circumstances. With the box now in his possession, Ha-jun felt confident in the simplicity of the task ahead. However, Demar's visage darkened, her eyes filled with sorrow, causing the surrounding environment to shift ominously. Flowers withered, and daylight waned. What is happening? Ha-jun wondered, bewildered by the sudden change. Demar turned away, and an unsettling thought crossed Ha-jun's mind. What if this innocuous lunchbox concealed something sinister? Yet he dismissed the notion, recalling her mention of it being intended for her daughter. Surely, it posed no threat. Determined to ascertain his delivery destination, he activated the map on his phone, only to be gripped by horror as he felt an invisible force drawing him in, leaving him utterly confounded. Moments later, he found himself back in the tangible world, bewildered by the abrupt return to Earth. He stood at Noryangjin Station, realizing he needed to navigate to Sinchon Station. Could it be that Demar's daughter resides in South Korea? He pondered in amazement, recalling her words about the necessity for deities to remain in their abodes. Resolute, he decided to uncover the truth, invigorated by the prospect of his new order. As he traversed the road, he mused about the potential compensation awaiting him. The notification indicated he was nearing his destination, and an unsettling thought crept into his mind. If I'd known, I would never have accepted this order. Before him loomed a colossal purple portal, a foreboding sight. Ha-jun gasped, realizing the implication that her daughter resided within one of the world's most treacherous dungeons, aptly nicknamed the Hunter's Grave. Anxiety coursed through him, for it was known that numerous hunters had perished within. He began to sweat, plagued by trepidation. No, why did I assume she was deep within the dungeon? Perhaps she awaits me at the entrance. Suddenly, a notification flashed on his phone, updating his destination with a map eerily reminiscent of a video game interface. They can't be serious, he exclaimed, incredulous at the absurdity of the situation. Determined to cancel the order, he glanced at the screen, only to be met with a shocking warning: divine punishment awaited those who failed to comply. What sort of ludicrous consequences are these? He exclaimed, gazing skyward in exasperation. With a sense of impending doom, he lamented, why did I take this order without reading the fine print? Realizing the gravity of his decision, he spotted several figures clad in black near the portal. How could he possibly bypass the sentinels without a hunter's license? In a moment of distraction, he whimsically contemplated why thoughts of tonkatsu, fried bacon, and pork soup flooded his mind. At that moment, another notification arrived, prompting him to consider the store as a potential source of assistance. What could I possibly purchase, he wondered, an idea striking him. What if I exchanged my points to enlist a couple of hunters? His gaze fell upon the store's offerings, and he pondered the first item listed, an invisibility cap. Curious, he delved into its description, discovering it was a replica of Hades' famed headpiece, an artifact capable of rendering the wearer entirely undetectable for a duration of 30 minutes. Wait, seriously? Just one application for 8 million, he shouted in astonishment. Ha-Jun's mind raced with possibilities. Could this artifact truly grant him the concealment he so desperately needed? In a moment of impulsive clarity, he discerned that this was precisely the remedy he required at this juncture. Though it bore the euphemistic label of a promotion, it was, in truth, a ruse of the highest order. With irritation bubbling within him, Haeyoung pressed the buy button, muttering about foolish Olympians. He resolved to fulfill this order without embarking on another task, but as soon as he initiated the transaction, a peculiar hat materialized before him, surprising him greatly. At that instant, the hat, akin to a celestial object, plummeted from the sky, and Haeyoung exclaimed in dismay, "No, not 8 million. In a swift motion, he managed to seize the hat and place it upon his head. Instantly, a timer emerged, indicating 28 minutes and 20 seconds remaining. Mounting his scooter, Ha-Jun sped forth, breezing past the guards. Suddenly, one guard sneezed, attributing it to a gust of wind, while another dismissed his concern, insisting that Yeon-won wouldn't dare invade their territory for a raid. As Ha-Jun stood poised before the gate, he mused on the absurdity of dining in such a desolate location. With a determined rev of the engine, he surged forward through the gate, where vibrant colors danced before him, proclaiming Ha Jangli, level 20, mail delivery man. In the next heartbeat, he found himself traversing a stone bridge leading to an imposing ice yurt. Apprehension gripped him, for he lacked crucial information: no hunting license, no heavenly patron, and no data regarding physical capabilities or special skills. Yet, his phone indicated he was nearing his destination, intensifying his anxiety. He considered the peril of being the first to delve into the depths of Tartarus. Surveying the desolate ruins, he called out, "Oh no, why is there no one here?" Glancing at his watch, relief washed over him as he realized he had completed the task in under 30 minutes, sparing him from metamorphosing into a pig. Raising his voice, he shouted, "Is anyone here? I have a delivery." Suddenly, a monstrous creature with 3 heads and luminous eyes loomed before him, and panic surged through Haeyoung. "What in the world is this?" he screamed, terror gripping him as the creature glared at him with malevolence. Tears welled in his eyes as he pondered the grim thought that perhaps becoming a pig would have been a preferable fate. As the monsters closed in on him, a chilling realization struck: he had squandered his precious coins on a ludicrous helmet, leaving him with nothing but a desire for a hearty serving of seafood noodles. In a moment of desperation, he recalled that he could reactivate the helmet. As the creature lunged at him, he shouted, "Activate the helmet," but felt the weight of his folly as time slipped away. Out of nowhere, a mysterious girl intervened, admonishing the monster not to consume him. Haeyoung gawked in astonishment as the girl, standing behind him, assured him that her dog wouldn't bite. To his bewilderment, she bore an uncanny resemblance to his own mother. "Perhaps the creature won't bite, but it could easily swallow you whole," he thought. Apologizing, he mentioned his delivery for her, but before he could elaborate, a booming voice called out, "Preeni, where have you wandered off to?" A formidable man with a long beard and a skull dangling from his belt appeared behind Haeyoung, declaring that she had been frolicking with Cerberus while amusing a mortal intruder in his underworld domain. Hades, the god of the underworld, seemed intrigued as Haeyoung stammered a greeting, but then halted, realization dawning upon him. Hades remarked that in the millennia since Horus, no one had dared tread into his realm. Using arcane magic, he enveloped Haeyoung in dark shadows that constricted around his throat, leaving him gasping in terror.